Hey, it's editing Ollie coming in. Just to let you guys know, we do bulk recording sessions because we have busy lives. But unfortunately, the Monday before this recording session, I tested positive for COVID. So to avoid spreading it, um, we decided to film or record. Separately for the first time ever. So there might be some odd feedback. Audio might not sync up quite right. We did the best that we could, but we just wanted to give you a quick disclaimer. I'm feeling fine, and next time things will be better. So, hope you guys still enjoy. Stay safe. Enjoy. Welcome to Wild Mystery Podcast Appears, where us dumb friends discuss mysteries, histories, and occasionally conspiracies. I'm your host, Dolly.
And I'm your host, Belle. Today's trigger warnings will include welfare and money struggles, murder of a child, sexual assault and pedophilia, and abuse. Just be aware this is an especially emotionally rough one, so if you do not want to listen to it, we will not be offended. Please check out all of any of our other episodes on any of our platforms.
I have the morbid curiosity for the true crime stuff, so I'm usually pretty emotionally tough when it comes to listening to these. I cried researching this case, so
I've got them ready.
Yeah.
This is not a very full box.
We'll get into it. Anyway. Amber Hagerman was born on November 25th, 1986 in Arlington, Texas, which is a large suburban town between Dallas and Fort Worth, where many jobs came from the GM factory in Arlington. Her mother, Donna Williams, had struggled with an unnamed chronic illness in her teens that paralyzed her from the waist down. Doctors at the time told her she would never walk or give birth, but she ended up doing both by the time she was 19. Because of this, Donna felt like Amber was an absolute miracle. And then, just a quick note, it was kind of hard to find Donna's last name because there were several mentioned. I've heard Norris, I've heard Whitson, I've heard Williams. But from my research, I'm pretty sure that at the time she was going by her maiden name, Whitson. And currently, I'm pretty sure she's going by Donna Williams. Amber was conceived by her mother, 19-year-old Donna, and her father, 36-year-old Richard Hagerman, who were never legally married, but I'm fairly sure did live together at the time they brought her home on Thanksgiving Day in 1986. Now, I can see you wanting to comment. That age difference is there.
I have comments. I'm going to keep them to myself.
And I can only imagine bringing her home on Thanksgiving Day. She must have really just felt like a gift.
Yeah.
When Amber was 4, Donna gave birth to her little brother, Ricky. She immediately took to him. Donna describes her being a, quote, little mommy to her little brother, who she called Bubba. He called her Sissy and says that she was his best friend. They spent tons of time playing outside together.
That's so sad.
Yeah. In 1994, Donna left Richard because of what she described as an abusive relationship. She moved herself, Amber, and Ricky into a women's shelter, and then later into a small home where Amber and Ricky shared a room. At this time, they were living on welfare, and Donna chose not to pursue child support from Richard. I don't know for sure why this is, because she has, to my knowledge, never said. But if I had to hazard a guess, it would be probably because of custody. I looked up what getting child support involves in Texas, and part of it does seem to include legal custody arrangements. And if Richard was abusive, I can see Donna not wanting to give him the opportunity for custody. And then as a quick note, I feel like I kind of need to add the if there, because to my knowledge, Richard has never been convicted of any abusive behavior.
Okay.
Believe victims, but moving on. At this point, the family struggle with welfare began. Donna had dropped out of school in 7th grade, which I wonder if her illness had anything to do with that. Yeah, 7th grade. But she felt like having dropped out was restricting her opportunities, so she got her GED and got on the wait list for job training.
Good for her.
This woman, yeah, she's a fucking force of nature because she was doing all of that and then also was a single mom, had a job, and was volunteering at her local welfare office.
Damn.
In 1990, yeah, in 1995, local news station WFAA was filming a special on welfare reform, and they actually spent a lot of time with Donna, Amber, and Ricky, showing what life was like for them. There's a lot of footage of Amber at her 9th birthday and a little bit before that, and watching the footage, you can really get a good sense of who Amber was. This is why I think I found this case so emotional, because you can get so emotionally
Invested.
a invested, yeah, and attached.
Connected.
You feel like you knew her, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, she was a Brownie and Girl Scout. She was passionate about school. She had straight A's, was on the AP honor roll, and had perfect attendance. Amber was a little bit shy, but she was full of life. Her classmates described her as really pretty and really kind, someone they always wanted to play with. Donna described her as mature, intuitive, smart, and a worrywart. Even at 9, she was worrying about the family's financial situation, which was really tough for Donna because she felt like she didn't want her to have to. She loved Barbie, the Disney princess Pocahontas, and her favorite color was pink. She had reddish brown hair, blue eyes, and freckles, and her ears were pierced. In 1995 and 1996, Amber was in 3rd grade at Barry Elementary School in Arlington. She was described by her teacher, Mrs. Walters, as a perfectionist who always wanted to do her best and loved creative writing. Also in 1995, while WFAA was still following the family, Donna started job training in Fort Worth. She was really, really just like happy and excited for the future. She saw herself on the verge of achieving her dreams and getting off welfare. On January 13th, 1996, Donna arrives at her parents' house with her kids at about 3 p.m. Amber's grandparents were named Jimmy and Glenda Whitson, and by all accounts, they doted on Amber and Ricky. The kids kept their bikes at the Whitson house, and they really loved biking around the neighborhood. So, pretty much as soon as they arrived, they were asking if they could take their bikes out. Donna told them okay, but to only go around the block a few times and come right back.
Okay.
So, at about 3:10, Amber bikes off with Ricky on her pink and white bike with beads on the wheel spokes. At the time, she was wearing brown suede shoes, pink pants, and a Camp Heart t-shirt, which was light gray with multicolored handprints. Despite what they had been told, the kids actually rode further than instructed to an abandoned Winn-Dixie, which is a grocery store, which had a loading ramp that the neighborhood kids loved to bike up and down. That seems like exactly. That
Yeah.
seems very typical. A little bit into this, Ricky, who was 5, got worried that they were breaking the rules, so he actually started back to the house without Amber. I imagine she probably noticed if she was so, like, took such good care of him, you know?
Yeah.
So Jim Kevill, who lived right up close to the abandoned Winn-Dixie, was outside in his fenced backyard working on his son's car at the time. He noticed the kids when he first came outside and said they seemed, quote, carefree and having fun. A little bit after Ricky rode off, he saw a dark truck pull into the parking lot and up close to Amber, who was still riding her bike. A man got out of the truck, grabbed Amber under her arms, and carried her kicking and screaming to his truck, where he tossed her into the driver's side door and then got in after her and drove off. Jim knew from Amber's reaction to this man that this was bad, so he went inside to call 911. Before he did so, he caught the car going north across the parking lot, hesitating, and then turning west on Abram Street, towards the center of Arlington and away from nearby highways. Dispatch received Jim's call at 3:18, 8 minutes after Amber and Ricky left their grandparents' house.
Oh my god, that's so soon.
Back at the Whitson residence, Ricky arrives home without Amber and is told to go back and get her. A few minutes later, he returns to tell the adults that Amber's bike is there, but she isn't. Jimmy Whitson, their grandfather, hops in his truck and rushes over to the abandoned grocery store where he finds the police, who fill him in on the abduction after he sees and recognizes his granddaughter's bike. So this is where the panic really hits. Donna describes her father coming back in his truck to tell them what happened, and she just took off running towards where Amber was abducted, screaming her name, and in a lot of ways expecting a response that just never came.
Oh.
Most of the police force in the area are mobilized to help in the search, and that search started with Jim Kevil's description of the abduction. Jim described the abductor as a white or Hispanic male in his 20s or 30s. He was under 6 feet tall with a medium build and brown or black hair. Jim also said that he was very fast. At first, Jim described the car as dark in color, but later seems to have clarified that it was black. Police were and still are looking for a 1980s to 1990s single cab fleet side pickup with a short wheelbase and no chrome striping or visible damage. I think from this description that Jim must have known a lot about cars, because then
Mhm.
he goes on to say, yeah, not only that the rear window was clear with no sliding glass, but also that he didn't think it was four-wheel drive or had any modifications, and that he thought it was American made. Despite this, though, the Arlington Police Department is not immediately discounting any make or model that only kind of fits this description. Unfortunately, the truck was pretty far from where Jim was, so he couldn't get a license plate number, but honestly, I still think that is, like, way more information than I would have been able to give.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a lot of detail that not
Yeah.
everyone would necessarily have.
So Jim also provided another pretty important piece of information here. When he first came outside to start working on his son's car, he noticed a pickup truck that he believed was the same truck that had abducted Amber, backed into a parking spot on the west side of the nearby Quick Wash laundromat. Again, this was before the abduction. He thought the occupant could have been watching the kids from where they were. Unfortunately, not a lot came out of that, though, because the police couldn't find any tire tracks or any other evidence that could be helpful, and no other witnesses besides Jim came forward.
Hmm.
At this point, the community fucking rallied around this family. The Arlington PD got police from Fort Worth and Dallas involved, as well as the FBI, and volunteers came out in force to help search for Amber. The family used every connection they had. Donna called WFAA to invite them to come film the family in the aftermath of the abduction. I can only imagine to get more eyes on Amber's face.
Yeah.
When Richard, Amber's father, was called about the abduction, he contacted Mark Klass, whose daughter Polly was abducted and murdered in 1993. Mark helped in contacting the media and FBI. By the evening on the same day as the abduction, volunteers had already designed, printed, and hung flyers showing Amber's face.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, good response time.
Yeah. This is a massive, massive case. Donna worked with Richard Hagerman to make public appeals to the community and to the abductor, begging him not to hurt Amber. Searches continued over the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th, which is when late at night, Stuart Coker, a resident at Forest Hill apartment complex about 4 miles from the abandoned Winn-Dixie, takes his dog for a walk in the northwest corner of the complex along a little creek behind a fence running along the west side of the building. At 11:41 p.m. on the 17th of January 1996, police dispatch received Stewart's 911 call, describing a naked body lying face down in the creek. Because of the notoriety of the case, Amber's family is immediately informed of the discovery, but they are told there has been no confirmation that it's Amber, even though investigators believe that it is her. WFAA filmed the family waiting up into the early hours of the morning at the Whitson residence, watching the news and waiting for confirmation. Eventually, that confirmation does come, and police identify Amber's fingerprint from a school safety card her parents had filled out a year or so previously. This is when this abduction investigation becomes a homicide investigation. The autopsy revealed Ramber. The autopsy revealed Amber had only been deceased for about 2 days, which means her killer likely kept her alive for about 48 hours before killing her. She had been sexually assaulted, beaten, and her cause of death was listed as cuts to the throat. Amber's funeral was held at 2 p.m. on January 19th at the Parish United Methodist Church in Arlington. She was in a pink satin dress holding a teddy bear with a blue casket surrounded by pink flowers, many of which came from her classmates. Thousands of people showed up, the whole community mourning Amber, who had become known as Arlington's Little Angel. Donna said she felt really good being able to see Amber again, but that it was also, quote, like she was taken away from me again. In the aftermath of the case, there was a monument built by a local man of an angel, which was placed near Amber's abduction site near a tree that has become known as Amber's Tree. People still put gifts there and decorate the wall close by that has been painted pink and is covered in well wishes and art dedicated to Amber. In February, the Amber Hagerman task force, made up of about 12 investigators, was founded. In the early days of the investigation, the police investigated any known sex offender in the area, but their investigation was seriously hindered by something extremely unfortunate. The 16th, the night before Amber's body was found, there had been a thunderstorm with massive rainfall.
Oh, fuck.
Police believe, yeah, police believe that Amber actually wasn't placed in the creek at the location that she was found, but actually drifted there and was placed in somewhere upstream. Part of this suspicion is that it's believed that if she had been placed where she was found, maintenance workers or other residents of the apartment complex would have found her body sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this drifting and the amount of water that had been flowing over her for those 2 days before she was found, there was almost no forensic evidence at the scene, and investigators didn't have the actual scene to look at. Stuart Coker and his family actually raked the creek bed in the days following the discovery, hoping to find anything that might help, but they came up with nothing. The only thing that was found on Amber were some fibers that were never identified. Police came out with a psychological profile of the killer, being a man of at least 25 who lived or worked near where the body was dumped. Again, not where the body was found,
Where the
near
body
where it
was
was
dumped.
dumped,
Yeah.
which we do not know where it was dumped. They also said that because Amber was kept alive for 2 days, there was a crime scene, quote, rife with physical evidence, end quote, somewhere in the area. They also believe that something caused the killer to snap, whether a domestic argument, loss of a job, or some other personal stressor, and that his physical appearance and personality may have changed as a result of the stressor or as a result of the crime.
Mm.
Police were also worried that there could have been other witnesses, especially in the laundromat, who may have seen what had happened but were afraid to come forward because they were undocumented. They tried to get the word out that they wouldn't even look at a witness's citizenship or documentation status, that they just wanted information, but nothing ever came of those appeals. Oak Farms Dairy offered a $10,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest and conviction of the case, and are still offering it today, but despite over 8,000 tips coming in about the case, it is still unsolved. By 1997, the case had gone cold, and the task force was officially disbanded, though the case is still open, now under Detective Grant Gilden.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, in the aftermath, Amber's family had a really hard time, as I'm sure everybody can understand. It took weeks for Donna to even move her and Ricky from her parents' home back to theirs. Ricky now suddenly had his own room with an empty bed on the other side, and he was struggling to understand what had happened to Amber. At one point, after the funeral, Donna picked him up from school, and he asked her if Amber was, quote, home sleeping. And Donna had to remind him that no, she was in heaven now. Which I think his question if she was sleeping is
Isn't
really,
that
really
far
heartbreaking.
off? Yeah.
It tells me that he on some level understood what was going on, but
Didn't know
not,
necessarily how to verbalize it.
yeah. But Donna had to remind him that no, she was in heaven now. And Ricky had a lot of behavioral issues after his sister's death, which a psychiatrist they worked with told Donna were pretty common for kids in his situation. He didn't understand why his sister was gone, and he was sad and angry. Get out of here.
Yeah.
He's still sad and angry, but at least it seems in more recent interviews like he's doing better, which I'm glad about.
Yeah.
The Coker family, again, the family that Stuart, who found the body, is a part of, they made pink ribbons for every month there wasn't an arrest in the case. And 6 months after her body was found, and Stuart, who found her body, later said on WFAA, to think that somewhere out there, someone knows this individual and they haven't come forward after 6 months. I can't grasp that. Donna was honored after Amber's death for outstanding volunteer work in a welfare office. But despite this, the same welfare office pressured her to sue for child support and asked her where money that was donated to her because of Amber's case had gone. She told them it went to a trust fund for Ricky to go to college someday, but despite this, they took away her welfare. And I'm just gonna that makes me so mad that I had to pause the documentary and go walk away and do other stuff for a minute because I was fuming.
I'm sorry. What the fuck?
Hey, you did a great job. Here's a reward for great volunteer work with us. Also, you don't get welfare
We're gonna go ahead and
anymore.
take away your welfare, despite the fact that you
Yeah.
literally.
This makes me so mad.
Oh, I don't have words for how angry and
Yeah.
upset I am by that.
Yep. And this was I think a month before she finished job trading, but I'm pretty sure she did. I'm pretty sure she still did finish job training. So Donna and Richard still they worked tirelessly after this happened to their daughter to stop it from happening to anybody else. They worked with Mark Class and then later Patsy Day, whose daughter Jennifer was also kidnapped and killed to fight for changes in the law. In October 1996, Donna and Richard attended a ceremony in the White House Rose Garden to witness President Bill Clinton sign the Amber Hagerman Child Protection Act into law. This act amends and revises a couple criminal codes and crime enforcement and control acts for harsher sentences on repeat offenders of sex offenses and helped to create the first national sex offender register. There were local, basically, sex offender registers. There wasn't a national one yet.
Mm-hmm.
After signing, President Clinton gave Donna the pen that he had signed with, and it seemed like it meant a lot to her. So, back in the early days of this case, though, Diana Simone, who was a mother living in Dallas, called a local radio station to ask why they couldn't give alerts on abductions when they could for bad weather. The station, they didn't really have an answer for her. So this proposal actually later led to the Amber Plan, the first ever emergency broadcast system alerting radio listeners to child abductions, giving information that listeners can use to potentially identify a child or their abductor. This was the beginning of Amber Alerts. For anyone unfamiliar with what an Amber Alert is, when a child is abducted and meets certain criteria, an alert is sent to highway and lottery signs, TV and radio stations, smartphones, and social media for anyone in the area. This alert will have information about the child, the abductor, a vehicle, or anything else that might be of use in people identifying the situation. As of December 31st, 2021, 1,111 children had been recovered alive directly because of an Amber Alert. But honestly, it's really hard to trace back what the direct cause of a child being found is in some of these cases. So that number actually might be even higher.
Mm-hmm.
So Amber is a backronym. It was originally it's named after Amber Hagerman. So, but they acronymed it to stand for America's Missing Emergency Broadcast Response. It is administered by the Justice Department, who have suggested activate it. It's administered by the Justice Department, who have suggested activation criteria that most states follow. That activation criteria is as follows. 1. Law enforcement must have a reasonable belief that an abduction has taken place. 2. Law enforcement believe that the child is in imminent danger of death or serious bodily injury. 3. There is enough descriptive information about the victim and the abduction to assist in the recovery. 4. The child must be 17 or younger. And 5. The child's name and information are entered into the National Crime Information Center, or NCIC system. Not all police departments include 2, believing a child is in imminent danger, or 5, entering their information into the system in state or county activation criteria, because a lot of people feel that those 2 criteria provide opportunities for delays or discrimination.
Mm.
And in the case of child abductions, every second counts.
Very much so.
So currently, all 50 states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Canada, and Mexico have adopted the Amber Alert system and have Amber Alert plans in place. A lot of other countries have implemented similar systems, but whether or not they're named after Amber, I think just kind of depends. The biggest issue lately, especially in the US, has been figuring out jurisdiction and activation for tribes, like First Nations tribes in the US,
Yeah.
especially on federally recognized tribal lands, what a lot of people refer to as a reservation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there have been acts passed trying to fix this issue because there have been cases actually where jurisdiction confusion has led to massive delays in Amber Alert activation. I'm talking in like a day, a full day in delay of the activation of the Amber Alert.
Wow.
But it's like the Amber Alert system, it's not something that anybody is ever going to object to fixing.
Yeah.
The Right now, thanks to the Ashland Mike Amber Alert in Indian Country Act of 2018, federally recognized tribes are eligible for Amber Alert grants, and they are allowed to use those grants to get their Amber Alert plans integrated across the nation. Did it have to take until 2018? Probably not. But at least it's a thing now, and people are still fighting to improve the system. At the 25th anniversary press conference at the site of her daughter's abduction in 2021, Donna said about the Amber Alert system, quote, "It's another legacy from my daughter, that she didn't die in vain, that she's still taking care of our little children as she did when she was here." Sorry, I need a second. This is like, watching the footage of her is like really, really rough. But
That's why I'm like, I feel like,
you feel so connected to her
yeah.
and to her
Well,
mom, you know?
yeah, and I think, I think it kind of can sound. I'm obviously being very quiet this episode,
Mm,
um, and that's honestly because I'm taking it all in. There's
mm,
a lot here, and the Amber Alert system has been such an integral thing, and
yeah.
yeah,
So,
I don't have a lot of words for it.
yeah. This case, it's just very emotional. It's just very emotional, period. Um,
Do you mind if I add
Donna
something real
has
quick?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's, and you might go into this later, but there is actually Hawaii also has their own version which is called a Mile alert.
Okay.
It's
I didn't know
this.
that because I heard that I think Hawaii was the last to implement an Amber Alert system. Um, but I hadn't heard that it was called something different. So,
Well, I don't know if it was um if it was created later, but I know, or I don't know if they had they didn't want to implement the Amber Alert system because they already had a Mile alert, or if it was
oh, maybe.
you know what I mean. So it's like that kind of, I wouldn't know,
Yeah.
but either way
And
they
then
have it now.
mhm. Currently, if you have a smartphone, there are Amber Alerts that kind of, I mean, they pop up on your literally on your phone. It's like the hazardous, if you've ever been somewhere with a hurricane, I'm sure you've seen, your phone buzzes and you look down and it's a severe weather alert.
Hmm.
It's the same kind of thing for an Amber Alert. Um, Donna has just asked for anybody who hears the Amber Alert notification to just take a second to look at it and then look around, because doing so can literally save a child's life and prevent another family from going through what she had to. Donna is now a medical assistant and is still fighting for Amber because she knows that Amber never stopped fighting. Yeah. Also, at the 25th anniversary, police currently working on Amber's case announced that they are keeping track of all developments in technology that could help the case, and were planning on submitting a sample of DNA that had been too small to do anything with at the
Before.
time of her case. They were planning on submitting it to an unnamed company that might be able to make a DNA profile from it. I haven't heard anything about that since, but they're keeping their cards pretty close to the vest on this to weed out false confessions. They're
Which makes
determined,
sense.
determined. Yeah. I mean, this is a super, super high profile case. Anytime that the Amber Alert is mentioned, Amber Hagerman is mentioned.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah.
there was a massive, massive, like, when I say that there was a massive, massive media presence, like, I cannot emphasize to you the level of
Enough.
media presence there was about this case. The Arlington PD is determined to solve this case. Many of the investigators, past and present, have gotten to know Donna and Ricky so well that it's like a personal and emotional battle for them as much as it is for the family. I know that if the police are right in their speculation that anyone undocumented is also a witness, it's scarier than I could ever imagine to go to the police with any tips, even with their statements that they aren't interested in pursuing this deportation or any other consequences. I mean, with what's been going on in the past couple of years, like,
We understand your
how
fear.
easy is it to believe that promise, you know?
Yeah.
Um, if you do know anything about the case, though, even the tiniest little thing, the investigators at the 25th anniversary, one of them said, "We need the tiny leads in this case."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so even if it's the tiniest lead, there was a new tip line established in 2021 at 817-575-8823, or you can remain anonymous by calling the Arlington Police at 817-469-TIPS. That's 817-469-8477. That is the Arlington Police Crime Stoppers unit. And Crime Stoppers has a huge emphasis on anonymity in tips because that helps tips come through in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you are worried, I mean, they're an endangered species, but payphones do still exist. You can ask to use a phone at a business. I know when I was at unnamed grocery store, we had a lot of people asking. I don't know with COVID precautions if they are,
Still
because I know,
exercising that.
yeah, I know. For a while when I was still working there when COVID first hit, we weren't allowing people to use the phone yet. We were doing it for them. That might have changed though.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it has. I mean, at some point it's got to. But
Yes.
if you don't want your voice to be heard at all, you can submit a tip online through Tarrant County Crime Stoppers at the website 469tips.com. That's 469tips.com. I couldn't find a specific page on Amber, but I did look at their tip form and they don't even ask for your information. There are 4 required questions, and 2 of them are just making sure you're filling out the right form, that you don't need to call 911 basically. The
Mm-hmm.
other 2 are the offense type and then a place for your actual tip for you to write in what you saw, what happened. If you want to remain as anonymous as possible, please remember that public libraries have publicly available computers that you can use for free.
Yeah.
And I think internet cafes are getting more popular too.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that we're going to end up offering this on a lot of cases. But if you really, really want, send us an email at awildmysterypodcastappears@gmail.com or go to our website at awmpa.com for more ways you can contact us. I will personally submit your tip instead of you.
I would
And
as well.
yeah,
100%.
in this case, if you like, for an undocumented, like, I I cannot
It's more
imagine how
important that her killer
scary.
gets caught, and we
Then
would, yeah.
yeah, I don't. This is one of those cases where I will personally submit that tip instead of you. We have a contact form on our website that you can fill out and remain completely anonymous. Um, I know that was kind of a long lecture, and I wish I could say that I know how scary this could be for an undocumented person in this situation, but I just don't.
Yeah.
This would be really scary, and submitting a tip would require an amount of bravery that I don't know that I have in me.
Yeah.
But if you do, I've those are, as many of the options as I could find, but call 911. I'm sure they're willing to take tips from anybody at any point in this case. They want to solve this case so badly.
Yeah.
There is there's a documentary called After Amber that WFAA did, where they interviewed Amber's parents and Ricky, and they put in a lot of footage. There's actually specific footage. The thing that like emotionally affected me the most is there was a they followed Donna going into Amber's class after her funeral and talking to the kids about how to be safe and answering their questions about what happened to Amber, because she knew that it was tough for them. And there was, I mean, just like unprompted, these kids started complimenting Amber and talking about what they loved the most about her. And I can't talk that much because I'm getting choked up about it, but it was like, it hit me really, really hard.
Yeah. I It is definitely like one of those cases that there are certain cases that you look at either, when you're doing something like this or in your day-to-day life and whatever you do, and they stay with you for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And it is there's never a good way to say it. It's absolute bullshit. And,
Mhm.
and to have the Amber Alert system shouldn't have to exist,
No.
but
It's
it
good that it does, but
does.
it shouldn't have to.
It shouldn't have to. And, and you could also, it's a case that sticks with you for life
Mhm.
because, and a lot of people don't even realize that Amber Hagerman was the reason for the Amber Alert
Mhm.
because I don't want to say it this way, but I don't know how else to put it. A lot of times, a lot of people tend to like to stay in their bubble of
Yeah.
ignorance. So it's like, it's important that people are reminded. It's like an Amber Alert wasn't just named because or because it's what the acronym ended up being. It's
Mhm.
based on a person, on a kid who lost
Yeah.
her life because of a sicko who decided that it was okay to kidnap and kill a child.
And that person has probably never been caught. I mean, they have DNA, and I don't think they've ever, I mean, they said it was so small that they couldn't do anything with it, so I actually don't, it probably hasn't been submitted to any of
Apis.
the national databases, but I mean, they are 100% right that DNA technology is progressing leaps and bounds every year. Every year we can do more with less DNA. So I think someday that this case probably will be solved. It's just, it might be one of those frustrating ones where the abductor is already dead, or they
And
can't
they don't get
necessarily
the
be held
justice that
accountable.
they deserve.
Yeah.
I mean, my heart goes out to her family so much
Yeah.
because
I don't think there was a single interview I watched with Donna where she didn't cry at some point.
well,
And
yeah, how do you not?
yeah, how, I mean, Ricky is he looks, I mean, he had such a hard time with this. There's footage of him acting out, which I feel a certain type of way of them about them filming a 5-year-old who is grieving. But this is He seems like he's doing better. He understands better what's going on, and he is fighting for Amber. The same way that she fought for herself, you know?
Yeah. I
And it's
mean,
really
I have only ever felt an iota of the, I'm sure,
mhm.
absolute panic that overtook them. Um, I've only felt an iota of it, and I know you felt it too, mainly because I called you.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there
so I can't even imagine. My heart just hurts for them. It really does.
yeah. Situations like I'm sure most of us we have experienced death where it's sort of, you know, you have the feeling you sometimes like you have those days where you want to just kind of like hang out with the deceased and you want to talk to them, and it like there is there's a point at which it is really tough to comprehend that you can't, you know, where like
Yes,
you
and
can't.
adults have a easier time rationalizing that than children.
But like how do you, you know, looking for your child but they just aren't there? How do you,
How do you
I mean, how do
how do you
you
handle that? How do you deal
yeah.
with that?
And Jesus, it's just like if you want to fucking have a good cry, watch the WFAA documentary After Amber. It's super, super well done, and it's just like you come out of it feeling like you knew her, and like you know you are personally affected by the case, which I mean everybody kind of is. If you have ever seen an Amber Alert pop up on your screen, if you've ever heard of an abducted child, you've been affected by Amber. But we don't all know that. And the happy ending that the Amber Alert has given a lot of children is something that Amber hasn't gotten herself.
And many other children in Amber's situation.
Yeah.
So
Cuz I mean,
I urge you on her behalf, we urge you on her behalf, and agree with Donna, is if you ever see an Amber Alert pop up on your phone, just take the time,
a second, yeah.
look up, look around, and
I always do whenever I get those texts, I take a look at them. I mean, and I work in retail, so I feel like there might be more that I can do than certain like other positions where maybe people just work from home. But and then there's I understand that this is really tough because as somebody with pretty bad anxiety, phone notifications are a trigger, like they trigger me in a way that I can't describe. Like it's just when there's when I get a lot of phone notifications or I'm already kind of stressed, it can genuinely trigger a panic attack for me to get that phone notification. But there are ways that you can set it so that it doesn't buzz, but you still, you know, you have your phone on silent or whatever.
mhm.
And I know that isn't ideal, but looking at even if you look at the Amber Alert late, it is better than not looking at it at all. And
Yeah.
so, are we emotionally
I
are we
don't, yeah,
emotionally
I
ready
say I
to
don't
end this
know.
episode?
I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to end the episode, and I don't know what the best, how to transition out of this, but I feel like you did a very good job in presenting her case to us today and honoring her memory and the legacy in which her family has wrought for her.
I couldn't add a lot of quotes here because I was already getting choked up writing this.
Yeah. No, and I could
Because
tell.
in the Chaim Weiss case, I tried to add as many quotes as I could because his father described Chaim and described the situation better than I thought I could. But I just like there was a lot of quotes in this case, obviously because of all the footage, but it's just really, really hard. Like, this has been the case of Amber Hagerman, an unsolved abduction and murder of a 9-year-old girl in 1996 in Arlington, Texas, which is the inspiration and namesake of the modern Amber Alert. This is a wild mystery podcast of cares. I'm Ollie.
I'm Belle. You can go to our website at